Should you buy or should you rent? As a real estate advisor, I get this question a lot. I see this question all the time. This is a debate that will never end. It's an eternal debate. But I'm gonna use this video as a chance to give you my 2 cents on this topic. So when it comes to buying versus renting, every real estate agent or consultant or advisor or broker that I see tries to give a very black and white binary answer. You'll see some people say, yes, you should rent for A, B, and C reasons. And then you'll see other people say, you should buy for A, B, and C reasons. My answer to this question, to this debate, when it comes down to it, is it depends. Ultimately, it depends on your situation. And I'm sure you're gonna sit there and you're watching this and you probably have heard other real estate agents or people that you know, whether they're investors or brokers, whoever, that have said, no, buying is always the best answer. I'm gonna tell you right now, they're lying to you. And the reason why they're lying to you is because they're incentivized to lie to you because that's how they make their primary means of income. I do not make my primary source of income is not through real estate. So this is why I'm allowed to be more free with you and more transparent and tell you that this is not always the best strategy. It's not always good to just buy a house. Real estate agents tend to not say that because that's how they make their money. They make their money through commission. So of course they're gonna say to buy a house. And I'm gonna give you a quick story to kind of illustrate this point. Years ago, when I was more active as an actual buyer's agent, I had a friend of mine, he wanted to buy a house in West Virginia. And I'm not licensed in West Virginia. At the time, at least, I was not licensed in West Virginia, so I couldn't help him. I can kind of give him like tips on what to do and how to prepare himself and what to look for when it comes to loans and the home buying process, what to look for on contracts that he's gonna see. But in the grand scheme of things, I couldn't do like showings and I couldn't walk him through the exact process that West Virginia uses because I'm not licensed in West Virginia. So I referred him to an agent that is licensed in West Virginia. And so we had conversations, kind of went back and forth. And the agent told him, you should just buy the house no matter what, because at worst, you can always sell it if it doesn't work out. This is something that a lot of agents will tell people, just buy the house, because if you buy it, you can always sell it. And I've heard so many people that I know repeat this exact same statement. They'll say, well, my agent told me that I should just buy a house because if I buy it, I can always sell it and it's fine. No, that is not the case. First of all, and I'm not gonna get too deep into the weeds or too deep into the nuances. If you'd like me to, leave a comment below and I'll make a separate video kind of getting into the different nuances of why that's a terrible idea. But I'm gonna say this just as a general response or general counter to the idea. Buying your house costs time and it can cost money. It costs money in the form of a down payment. It costs time. It costs money maybe in the form of negotiations. It costs money in the form of a down payment. It costs money to change your locks. It costs money to move. It costs money to go through the whole process of just buying. You have to pay for home inspections. There's a lot of things you have to pay for when it comes to buying a house. Selling a house also has its own costs. One of the costs might be the cost of just not being able to sell right away, not being able to sell for the exact same price that you purchased the house for. You may have purchased the house, say for example, for $250K, and maybe you got into the house, maybe something broke down, so that's money being subtracted, plus the mortgage that you already started paying, that's more money. You might have HOA fees, that's more money that you've paid. Then you might sit there and realize, you know what, I don't want this house. Maybe there's too many things that are broken that I didn't notice before. Maybe the area is not as good as I thought it was. Maybe the house just doesn't serve my purposes as I thought it would. Cool, that's no problem. You go to sell, you have to pay a listing agent. Typically, if you want to use an agent, you're gonna have to pay them commission, and the commission usually comes from the listing agent side or from the seller side. Now, it's not money out of your pocket per se, because you're not paying them like a wage or a salary, but it is deducted from the amount of money you are going to earn once you sell. So that's more money that you're not gonna get. Then you have to consider the market. Markets shift all the time. There are some markets that favor buyers. There are some markets that favor sellers. If a market favors buyers, you're gonna find that buyers are gonna hardcore negotiate with you. They're gonna want the best deal for them. And chances are you don't have that much wiggle room to get what you want. So maybe that $250 house that you've already spent for repairs, maybe you lived in there for a few months, so you paid for some of the mortgage, some of the HOA, whatever. You're gonna sell it, and maybe people, maybe the market dictates that it's worth $260 tops. Cool. Again, you still have to pay the realtor a commission, and usually the commission is about 3%. Usually. It depends on the state, depends on the market, but usually it's about 3%. So 3% of what you're gonna earn is already being deducted to pay the realtor. Plus, if you've lived in it, you still have to pay for some repairs. Again, because you still have to make it look nice enough to sell. It needs to be market ready. The point, and there's more expenses that you probably have to pay for, but the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not gonna be as simple as just put the house on the market and it'll sell. You do have to market it in a sense to get people to buy it at the price that you want. So when people say to you, it's okay if you buy, just put it on the market. You'll get your money back. That's not true. It is not true. Realtors say that, realtors and real estate agents say that because they are inclined to say that. This is how they make their money. So they're gonna say whatever it takes to get your business. Does that make sense to you? Please understand that point. So when people say, should I buy or should I rent? This is why I say it depends. One of my core philosophies is this. You don't wanna buy, first of all, unless you plan on living in an area, in my personal opinion, for about 5 years or so. That's kind of the number one thing that I usually recommend to people. Unless you plan on, if you're not sure if you're gonna live in an area, if you think you might switch jobs soon, do not buy. Do not buy. Because the house will keep you in that area even if you want to move or if you have plans to move. Does that make sense to you? You're not gonna be able to, some people think you just put the house on the market and it'll fly off the market. It's not always the case. There are some people that put their house on the market and it stays on the market for 30 days, 60 days, a whole year, maybe 2 years. It just depends. And you can't always predict what's gonna happen. So, first of all, just only buy when you plan on staying in an area for about 5 years. Second, not every house is a good investment. People say, well, if I buy a house, it's gonna appreciate. Not always. Chances are it might, but not every house appreciates. And not every house appreciates well, even when it does appreciate. Does that make sense? The other part of appreciation is that appreciation only matters when you sell the house, or if you're taking out maybe like a home equity line of credit or something like that, but we're not gonna get too deep into that. In general, the appreciation, the value of your house only matters when you're going to sell it. But if you're gonna sell the house too soon, it doesn't really matter, right? And if you're not gonna sell the house for say a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, it doesn't really matter right now because there's such a thing called opportunity costs. And these are some of these concepts that I think people just don't consider when it comes to buying real estate. When I say opportunity costs, there is a value to your money today. There's a value to spending your money today. You could wait 10 years for your house to appreciate, say, $100,000 in value, $250,000 in value. Maybe if you're lucky, $500,000 in value. That could take you 10, 20, 30 years. And if you're the kind of person that just likes to coast, and if you're not trying to improve, then that might be the best strategy. That could actually be the best strategy for you. But if you're the kind of person that's ambitious, if you're the kind of person that wants to grow, if you're the kind of person that maybe wants to invest or invest in themselves or start a business, that, at best, $500,000 over say 10, 20, or 30 years could have just been money put into yourself. Is that, because think about it. It's not gonna be straight 500K because again, you're paying the mortgage, you're paying the insurance, you're paying for other things too. That's gonna be technically deducted from when you do go to eventually sell. Please keep that in mind. So, in the grand scheme of things, you could have put all the money that you would have put into the mortgage, the insurance, everything else, you could have put that into yourself or your business, and you could have made more money today. And I'm saying today is an exaggeration, but the point I want to make is that you could be making more money sooner than later. Hopefully that really makes sense. Like you could, if you're relying on the appreciation of a house, you're delaying a potential outcome that you don't know is actually going to happen. Meanwhile, if you're more active in your life and you take all the money that you would have invested into a house and invested into yourself instead, you might be significantly better off because you could get a return on your investment immediately. You could get that return in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, maybe 10 years. But chances are, because you're actively trying to get that return on investment, the money is better spent because you're in more control. Hopefully that makes sense. Like anything can happen in your area that can make your house increase in value or decrease in value. Things that are outside of your control. Things you cannot replicate either. But if you put that money into yourself, you can replicate those results. You can learn from trial and error. You can create a compound effect because it might take you 10 years to make the exact same amount of money or less money than you would have made from a house appreciating. However, because you know how to make that money, And because you can control how much money you're making, you could just repeat that process. And maybe it took you 5 or 10 years to make 100K. Okay, well now you can just do that process again in like a month or 2 months or a year. And now you've doubled your income or 5x it or 10x it or whatever. So I don't want to make this too complicated, but I do want to make that point. People say it's better to, I see a lot of people that say it's better to buy. It's not necessarily true. And I see people say it's better to rent. It's not necessarily true. It kind of just depends on your situation. It depends on who you are. It depends on what you're striving for. And it depends on your lifelong strategy is really what it comes down to. Now, as always, as a real estate consultant, if you ever have any questions about your specific circumstances, feel free to reach out. Leave a comment below, or there should be a link below where you can reach out to me. And I'll also put my email address down below. But feel free to reach out, ask me questions. I don't charge for you to ask me questions. And I'll do my best to kind of give you the exact steps that you should take to achieve whatever goal it is that you have. Hope this video made sense. I will see you in the next one. Peace out. Bye.